Hi there. Welcome to Community Classroom Yoga. I'm your host, Noah Krol, and we're here with yogis Cameron and Nicole, and we'll lead you through just a soft 30-minute beginner practice. You could lie flat on your back as they are now, or if you'd like and have a towel or a small blanket, you could put that under the low back now, and we'll spend a few minutes just as they are here relaxing, allowing for the blanket to sit sort of the top of the hips to the bottom of the ribs if there is one there, just to create a nice little curve in the spine, although not necessary if you don't have one, but nice to have. And just take a few moments, just feeling the backs of the hips can sink nice and heavy into the ground. And the breath can create this lift sort of out of the hips up into the head, this feeling that the ribs maybe with each breath can get a little bit more apart and spread out and create some space there. Good. One more breath. We'll plant the feet in front of the hips. The feet can step a little wider to the edges of the mat to let the knees come together. And then let them drop side to side on your exhale like a pair of windshield wipers back and forth. And help to sort of warm the hip joint up. Maybe even a bit of massage into the low back. As they drop side to side, or as your legs drop side to side, you might notice the knee that drops inwards, that hip tends to want to lift off the ground. So just more and more the sense that the backs of the hips and thighs can stay heavy, but the lift start to be a little bit more in the low back perhaps. It can start to open up a bit. Good. One more breath. When you're even through both sides, you can just pause in the middle for a moment. Good. And then draw the right knee into the chest when you get there. You can extend the left leg long. As the knee draws in, the spine is going to want to push down into the blanket or into the mat if you're flat on your back. So the sense of a little bit of lift in the spine, or that the back of the hips want to become a little bit heavier into the ground. Tendency as we draw in, and the tightness in the backs of the legs just pulls and irritates and drags the low back down. So a bit of a chance to create a bit of space and an opening if there's any low back issues. Good. As you exhale, you can release the right leg, lie flat a moment. Adjust the hips a bit if you need to feel a bit more neutral. Good. And then draw the left side in. Same sense of even this feeling, there's a bit of a crease made at the front of the hip there. That can sink down into the ground. That'll help to anchor the hip nice and heavy. You can draw the knee in. Even a sense of wanting to kind of arch and energetically lift your low back up. The lower spine has a nice curve in the lumbar that's very important for support of the body and for where the nerve plexus comes out of. Good. As you exhale, you can release the leg long. Extra space maybe in the front of the belly and the thighs. Good. Take a breath. And then plant both feet in front of the hips again like we did before. And work to arch the spine away from the blanket. And then once you feel the spine's arched, you can take the hips up into the air and slide your blanket out if there's one there. If there's not one, you can just arch and lift. And although the hips will physically be at a higher plane than the chest, the sense that the chest wants to rise and to expand up to the height of the hips. And into that, just take a few breaths. The back of the legs can be a little active. The back of the head, the back of the shoulders, all rooting down strong. Good. And as you exhale, you can let the hips come back down to the ground like we did before. Left knee can come into the chest. You can stretch the right leg out. Take that moment, especially if you feel a bit contracted up on that left side, feel a bit rounded. Bring the hips to a natural position as if you were standing. And then take the left arm out to the side. You can roll onto your right side to twist. Good. Work more and more to take that top hip right across so that the back of the hips are nice and flat. Even if you need to maybe prop something under the knee, you could use your blanket or something else as we continue in this, anything really, even a fist of that hand. And then twist back. And this feeling that every time you breathe, imagine the air is filling the body. Let it expand and open, and then soften. Expand and open, inhale and exhale. That expansion creating some space to twist back a little farther. Good. One more breath. And come onto your back, and we'll just hug both knees into the chest. And if we bring the knees super close together, it might be a little difficult for the low back, so they can widen out a bit so they're about to the edges of the mat. Again, those groin creases can soften down there. Even a sense maybe the low back, the back of the hips want to widen out and decompress a little bit. Although physically the breath isn't going to get all the way down there, this feeling that the breath could drop to the bottom of the pelvis. Good. And keep the right leg in. You can stretch the left leg long. Same thing, take a moment here. Feel like your hips are not all bunched up and rounded under. And then arm out to the side and find your twist. Again, it's a little bit tight in the hip. It's always a blanket or a towel like we did could come underneath the knee. I put on Nicole just as a demo. If it's not there, something as simple as a fist or something. Whatever is accessible. If it's a practice you want to adopt more and more, you'll start to know what your body needs and have it handy more readily as you practice. Good. One more breath. Even this feeling that as you inhale, the breath might want to fill into the back of the ribs a bit more to create that feeling of space in the ribs that you can draw back into. Good. One more breath. And come on to your back as you inhale. Stretch the right leg out and just lie flat a moment or two. This feeling maybe sort of from the hips out through the heels, there's this sense of tractioning and length. In contrast to that lengthening and softening in the lower body, this full lift in the breath. Good, one more breath. And you can hug your knees back in. You could, just as they were before, be a little wider, or they could squeeze to midline a bit. And if you like, stay here or round up. Bring the forehead to knee. And even though the head's coming up, this sense of kind of wanting to stay broad in the chest so you don't get super rounded. Good. Release the torso if it's lifted. You can roll to your right side. Pause a moment there. And then come up to all fours. Good. As you find all fours, this feeling that the hands, if you were to even look at them, underneath the fingernails is maybe even a little bit white because there's just a bit of gripping. Start to make it a bit active. Same, you can tuck the toes under. That'll help to keep the legs a bit active. And as you inhale, you can look up, create a back bend. Exhale, you can look down and round. Good. So if you notice here, in the spine, as she exhales, the spine will actually lift and spread up. And then as she inhales, the spine's going to sink and sort of spread on the front, so up and down. So we lift the head, we tendency maybe to stay hard in the upper back. So really see if you can get the spine coming up and down a bit more. One more breath, in a sense of spreading the ribs on the back, spreading the ribs on the front. And the next time that you inhale, the knees can come a little wider, and the hips can sink back towards the heels. If you feel a little bit tight as you come back, feel free to stay up on your fingertips or on your elbows. If it feels fairly comfortable, you can just settle right down. Either way, like on your back, that crease in the hips is what needs to draw back to make it more comfortable as you come back into this space. Good. One more breath. And then let's come up to all fours. So again, if your knees are a bit sensitive, Nicole will demo, you can put that blanket or something. You can always roll your mat up, but I find a blanket, even if it's not quite this thick, you can just something that you can leave there for the next few moments that won't get in the way. And then we'll draw the right foot to the hands. No rush. Find a good distance for the foot. So there's this feeling you can sink and bend into the hips and draw down into the front knee, but that the knee is going to stay pretty much right over the ankle and not come way past the toes. If it does, you could move the foot a bit forward or take the back leg a little bit farther back. And just settle to meet that place where you don't have a lot more movement. And this feeling that the back knee is going to kind of root down. As you inhale, the hips can lift just up an inch or so, and then exhale, they can sink back down. And just sort of in and out, that place where you meet the stretch. and come out. This feeling, maybe the body starts to develop a little bit less of a hard, rigid feeling, and a little bit more of an elastic and a softness in it. Good. One more breath or so. This feeling, maybe the outer edge of the hip wants to sink a little bit heavier if it wants to get tipped up. Good. And the next time that you guys inhale, come back to push up on your knees, either on the mat or on your blanket if you've got something there, and just make some hip circles to the right. This feeling of rolling the thigh bone, the femur, where it comes up into the hip, into the cup, so it can sort of lubricate and really help create this nice strong connection that's going to support the low back and good joint health. Most problem in the hips, they don't sit well because of tight musculature. We run into some osteoarthritis and other sort of irritations in there. Good. One more breath. And the next time that you find yourself with your hips back over your knees a bit more, let's switch legs and draw the left foot to the hands. That same feeling as we did on the first side. There can just be a little movement sort of in and out once we find that good distance in the legs. And more and more as you come in a bit, you might notice that the hips are a bit, wonky, just like when we had the knee to the chest on the back. The same wanting to sort of square the pelvis and right into the low spine. It will be a bit rounded naturally, but there's that feeling, the spine, the ribs, the chest want to travel along that front thigh a little bit. So it feels less bunchy and rounded and a bit more expansive. Good. One more breath, you guys. And then same as the first side. Come into that push up on your knees. And just let the hips make those same circles the other way. And this feeling, if you sort of imagine as Nicole rolls around here, her hips and her thigh, they're starting to come together and create this nice connection, creating the synovial fluid, or the fluid that nourishes the joint and nurtures it, the cartilage and whatnot. Good. One more breath. At the same time, the next time the hips come back, the knees can widen out. You can come to the tops of feet again. It'll sink back to child's pose. And as the hips open, you might come a little deeper, And if it's not super comfortable, which it may not be, this was one of my least favorite things when I started, you might stay a little higher on the hands or the elbows. Good, and just take a few breaths. Same sense as before, as the hips sink back, even though the blanket's not there, the spine wants to move forward. It's extending, the ribs are lengthening with the breath out through the head. Good. One more breath here. And then let's come back up through all fours. Just like we did the first time, just arch and round. The hips will tip forward and back, but again, especially into this upper spine, really let it come up and down. Imagine the sternum, the breastbone, and the upper spine doing the opposite of the head. Head lifts up, spine sinks down. Head drops down, spine lifts up. Good. One more breath. And the next time that you inhale, let's find the left foot back to the hands into that same lunge, as is on the mat, or you could find a little bit of a blanket if you need it for the knee. Good, so take that moment, sink low, and then come up to your fingertips on the right hand, and bring your left hand to your hip or thigh. Good, just as before, settle low, and then keep the hips down as you inhale. Press into those right fingertips, start to turn the gaze up, turn the left shoulder up, start to look up. Good. You can stay here, and just the sense that instead of feeling like you're rounded down, that you're being drawn a little bit back. And if that feels good, hand can stay where it is, or you could also stretch the arm up into the sky. Press down into the fingers, sink down into the hips. Good. One more breath. And as you inhale again, we'll untwist. Find that push-up position on your knees, and then from there, lift your hips up into the air to a downwards facing dog. Good, so instead of those circular motions, we'll just press down through one heel and the other. The hips might shift a little side to side. The tendency again is for the low back to really want to round out maybe. So a little bit, as Nicole's done here, a bit more of a back bend in the spine. Even if you need to bend the knees a bit more so you can get some movement into the pelvis to take the hamstrings out of it. Good. One more breath through each leg, and then drop back down to the knees. Good. Switch sides. Let's find the right foot to the hands. No rush. Take a moment or so, settle. Something under the knee if you need to. When you find that same distance like the lunge we did before, let the left fingertip stay down. Right hand to the hip as you inhale. Just start to twist open. If you twist and it feels like the head is dropped forward into the chest, draw the head back. Let the front of the throat become a little bit more open. Hand can stay where it is, or if you did on the first side, you could take the arm to the air. If you didn't, just keep it as it is. In the sense that from those bottom fingertips, from that bottom hip, if the arm is lifted, stretch way up. If the hand is on the hip, open the chest way up. Good. And then inhale, let's untwist. Come back to that push-up on your knees, and one more time, the hips can lift up to that downwards facing dog. The spine wants to round as best you can. Work to create a little bit more of a back bend. And this feeling, especially because most of our heels will be lifted here, if he reaches a lot into his hands, he can take all that stretch back into the hips and down to root the heels. So one more breath. Really press through your right hand, through your left hand. Get some space. And then let's walk our feet up to our hands. If you get to your hands and you feel very tight in the hamstrings, bend your knees a little bit so the hands come to the ground, or bring your hands to your knees maybe so there can be a little bit more extra weight, a bit more of a bend even. Yeah, just so there can be a bit of a softness in the hamstrings. And then bring your hands to the hips. Lift from the head and come up to standing. Good, so take a moment. Just notice, the weights even in the feet, they're not doing something crazy. They're both pretty much, straight ahead and not to the sides. And then lift your arms overhead. Big inhale. Left hand can grab your right hand, and then keep that sense of lifting up, but we'll side bend over to the left. So even though the side bending is coming over, the ribs are spreading, there's still this upward action to create traction in the body. And then into that lift, let's come back up to standing as you inhale. You can release the hands. All of your weight can shift into your right leg, and you can start to come up to your left toes. If you feel like your left toes is good, you could bring the foot up and start to hover. If you feel your balance, you haven't fallen over, this is good, you can start to work to hold on to the knee maybe. Good. So just play this sense of being able to draw the leg up. The more the leg draws up, the standing knee tends to want to either really lock out hard or bend a lot forward. So imagine this standing leg. It's active and straight, but dynamic. Good. Exhale, release the lifted leg. Close your eyes and just stand tall a moment, even through both feet. With the eyes closed, the body naturally tends to waver a little bit. Let's find that place, and really a lot in these beginner practices, just starting to reset the places in the body that hold some strength and the places in the body that allow for some opening and movement so we can be a bit more functional and not sort of bound in ourselves. Good. Eyes can open. Same thing. Arms can sweep up and overhead. Let's grab right hand to left wrist. Side bend over to the right. As you draw over, that same sense like in that balancing pose with a strong leg rooting down through the feet, to get that sense of being able to pig up into the ribs, up into the armpits, and even out through the hands. Good. Come back to center as you inhale. Release the hands down. Same thing. We'll stand in the left leg. The right toes can start to lift or hover off the ground. Hands maybe to the back of the thigh, to the knee or shin. Standing leg again. And steady. This feeling sort of the middle of the foot to about the knee to the hip, or in a nice straight line, so especially if your knee tends to want to buckle in. It's something to be mindful of for the joint health. It may be more important to stack the joints in the standing leg than to get the lifted leg up. It'll greatly help with all the balance entailed. Good, one more breath. And then as you exhale, you can release the lifted leg. Again, just close your eyes and stand tall for a moment. And then let the arms sweep overhead. Big inhale. Exhale, bow forwards and bend your knees as much as you need to bring the fingertips to the ground. Once the fingertips are on the ground, you could stay here, or if it feels good, you could start to stretch the legs a bit straighter. They don't have to. Good. And then step back to the top of a push-up or to all fours, whatever is the easiest way to transition down onto your bellies. Your forehead can rest onto the backs of your hands for a moment or so. And just this feeling that instead of wanting to breathe down into the mat, the breath wants to fill into the back of the body, rise up into the back of the ribs. A little bit of a firmness in the belly here. So we'll take one more breath. And then from here, essentially, if you just don't change what's going on too much in the arms and shoulders, but just extend your right hand straight out to the side. So without changing your shoulder elbow. Good. You can look over your left shoulder, and we'll just start to roll onto our right hip. As you roll onto the right hip, the front of your shoulder is going to want to get stuck into the ground. So this sense of wanting to keep lifting your shoulder up. That you can keep walking and moving the fingers back a little bit. And this nice stretch in through the front of the chest. Left shoulder itself could also draw back as well. And just take a moment. This is one of those things we get into the stretch in the pecs and it can become a little bit tight. So it's feeling not so much of jamming and pushing harder to open the body, but allow for the breath, the way the ribs attach to the connective tissue and the musculature, the inhale itself will open the stretch, much like those initial twists. Good. One more breath. Come onto your belly, forehead back to the hands. Again, find that breath in the back body. You might even physically move and stretch the legs back a little. And then we'll switch sides. You can take your other arm out to the side. If it gets to be too low, the front of the shoulder gets stuck. And if the arm comes too high, there's no stretch. So like just off the side of the head, you can roll to the left. You might need to physically walk the fingertips back and just broaden. Meet the stretch. And then find a deeper breath here. And that same sense that when you're on your belly, let the breath fill the back body a little bit. So you're creating the space just in your own breathing to move and draw back a little farther. Good. One more breath. When you're ready to, we'll come back to your bellies. One more time, forehead on the hands. As the breath fills the back body, let that be the space that really wants to draw back through the legs, create the sense of lift up into the back of the skull. Good. And then one more time through, let's press up through to all fours. Open the knees a little wide. Last time, we'll sit the hips back towards child's pose. The groin creases can soften. Create a weight in the hips that the spine and chest can move down, as if like the very bottom of the low back wanted to extend out through the fingertips and then the top of the head. Good. Let's take one more breath here. And the next time that you inhale, you can transition through all fours and sweep the feet out in front of you. So if you find that the hamstrings are really tight as you come to seated, again, we have a blanket. Maybe you could just sit on the edge of it, just to create a little bit of a lift, just a bit of space for the pelvis. The other option would be to bend the knees a bit when we get there. But either way, let's keep the left leg out straight. We'll draw the right heel into the groin. Open the right knee up a bit so it feels like your torso turns a bit to the right. And then lift your right arm way up into the air. As you lift that arm, create that same sense as we've done before of drawing up in the spine. There's this nice lift in the body. And even though we're going to side bend, we're going to keep that upward lift. So as you exhale, reach for the foot, spine still rising up so we don't just crumple and collapse. Inhale, you can come up. And just 2 or 3 times in and out of that. As we get open on that right side, we tend to get very short in on the left side. So you can even get this feeling of lengthening the left side a bit farther to create some more space to twist or to extend into. Good. The next time that you sit tall on your inhale, you can release your right hand, Cross your left ankle just in front of the right ankle, just a simple cross-legged position. Find some lift in the spine, just like you did before those side bends. And then let's twist. You can bring your right hand to your left knee and your left fingertips behind you. Good. The back arm can be rooting to create that sense of lift in the spine, if that's helpful. So the sense that she doesn't feel like she's being dumped down, but of really actively lifting and filling with the breath. Good. One more breath. And then from here, you can inhale to untwist. Walk your hands as far forward on the mat as comfortable, and just start to bow down. And again, although the spine is going to start to round in the back body, there's still that same feeling of sinking right into the groin crease to get some length into the low back. Good. One more breath. And then like we did the other side, you can sit tall as you inhale. Stretch both legs out. Good. Take a moment. And then switch sides. We'll draw the left heel in. Open the knee and chest a bit to the side so you're facing off, and then stretch that arm up. As it lifts, get nice and tall. Keep that lift upwards. Exhale, reach for the foot. So let's do that 4 times. Exhale to reach, inhale to lift. As you come down, every time, think about getting just as long on that right side. So there's a whole shifting over as much as there's a willingness to curve. Good. And at the end of that 4th one, so one more. And release the hand down once you come back up on your inhale. Same thing. Cross the right ankle in front of the left knee. Sit up nice and tall. And as you get there, just find your twist. The back arm can help to create maybe a bit of a lift to draw up into the spine. The front arm creating a chance to help to draw and spin around. Good. One more breath or two. As you inhale, we'll come on to out of our twist to stretch the legs out. And then the exhale. Remove any propping that you may be sitting onto. Let's come on to our backs. As you find yourself down to your backs, it's the finish of the posture of the whole practice. The body can just lie out flat. You can start to relax nice and deep into the breath. And traditionally at the end of the practice, we'll finish with Namaste, which is a Hindi greeting that sort of recognizes the sameness in all of us. So into that as you relax, for 5 or 10 minutes, Namaste. And enjoy the rest of your time here and your breath.